Right now, the money in your bank account does not actually exist. 90% of it is gone, not stolen, loaned to somebody else, who also got the money from a bank, who also loaned it to somebody else. And this chain repeats 9 times. Most people believe that when you deposit $1,000, the bank keeps your $1,000 in a safe. Almost nobody knows that the bank uses your $1,000 to create 9,000 new dollars, money that did not exist 5 minutes ago. This is not a conspiracy. This is the legal, regulated, taught in the textbook foundation of every modern banking system on Earth. It is called fractional reserve banking, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how every dollar in your account is, in a very real sense, a fiction. Welcome back to Berloga. Today we open the curtain on the most successful magic trick in financial history. A trick performed by your bank every single day on every dollar you deposit. So smooth, so legal, and so invisible that almost nobody notices it is happening, even though it is the reason inflation exists, the reason debt crises happen, and the reason banks can fail overnight when too many customers want their money back at the same time. If you have ever wondered why money seems infinite for banks but always finite for you, by the end of this video, you will know. So let us start with the myth. The myth is the bank vault, a heavy steel door. Behind the door, neat shelves of cash. Behind the shelves, your name written next to a number. The bank just stores your money. It charges you a few fees. It pays you a tiny interest. Nothing more, nothing less. That myth has not been true for 300 years. To understand why, we have to go back to London in the 1600s. Before there were banks, there were goldsmiths, craftsmen who worked with precious metal. They also owned the only thing every wealthy merchant in London needed, a strong vault. So merchants began bringing their gold to goldsmiths for safekeeping. In exchange, the goldsmith gave the merchant a paper receipt saying, in effect, "The bearer of this paper may claim 1 bar of gold from my vault." Over time, merchants stopped bothering to redeem the gold. The paper receipts were easier to carry, easier to spend, and accepted by other merchants who knew the goldsmiths. The receipts became money. And one day, a clever goldsmith noticed that only a small fraction of his depositors ever came to claim their gold. The rest just sat there, generating zero income. So the goldsmith started writing extra receipts, receipts for gold that did not exist. He loaned them to borrowers, charged interest, and pocketed the profit. As long as nobody asked to redeem all the receipts at once, nobody could tell the difference. That was the birth of fractional reserve banking, a piece of paper claiming gold that was never there, a loan made from money the lender did not have. 300 years later, we are still doing it, just with computer ledgers. Here is the modern reality. When you walk into a bank and deposit $1,000 in cash, the bank does not put your $1,000 on a shelf. The bank types a number into a computer. The number says $1,000. You see this number when you check your balance on your phone. You believe this number is your money. But almost immediately after you walk out of the branch, the bank takes most of that physical cash and loans it to somebody else. By law, the bank only has to keep a small fraction of your deposit in reserve. For most of the 20th century, this fraction was about 10%. So out of your $1,000 in cash, the bank keeps $100 in reserve. The other $900 is loaned out to a small business owner, to a home buyer, to a student, anyone who walks in and asks for a loan. Now watch the magic. The borrower takes the $900 and spends it on equipment. The shop that received the $900 deposits it into its own bank. That bank now treats it as a fresh deposit. It keeps 10%, $90, and loans the remaining $810 to somebody else. That somebody also spends it. Another business receives the $810 and deposits it. The third bank keeps $81 and loans $729 to a fourth borrower. This loop continues 9 more times. Each cycle creates new money out of the previous deposit. By the time the chain ends, your original $1,000 in cash has been transformed into approximately $10,000 of new deposits, scattered across multiple bank accounts, all visible to their owners as their money. But here is the catch. The actual physical money in the system never grew. Only your original $1,000 in cash exists. The other $9,000 is just numbers in computers, owed to depositors who all believe their numbers represent actual money. This is fractional reserve banking. The bank is permitted to lend a multiple of what it actually holds. The math is simple. A 10% reserve requirement allows the bank to create up to 10 times the original deposit in new money. A 5% reserve requirement allows 20 times. A 0% reserve requirement allows any amount. That is not theoretical. On March 26, 2020, the United States Federal Reserve quietly eliminated the reserve requirement entirely. It is now legally 0%. Banks no longer have to hold any fraction of your deposit. They can lend out 100% of every dollar that enters the system. Most Americans have no idea this happened. There was no headline. There was no public debate. One press release. Done. Now think about what your savings account actually is. When you check your phone and see a number, say $20,000, you assume that $20,000 in cash exists somewhere on your behalf. It does not. Almost all of it has been loaned out. The number in your app is not money in a vault. It is a promise. A promise that if you ask for the money, the bank will produce it. This works as long as not everybody asks at the same time. When everybody does ask at the same time, you get a bank run. A bank run is what happens when the magic trick gets exposed. The bank does not have the cash. It never had the cash. It loaned the cash out 10 times over to other people. The only way the bank survives is if a central authority, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, somebody, steps in and prints emergency money to cover the gap. We saw this in 1929, when over 9,000 American banks collapsed in 3 years and millions of depositors lost everything. We saw it again in 2008, when Lehman Brothers fell and the entire global banking system needed $700 billion of emergency money to stay alive. And we saw it most recently in March 2023. Silicon Valley Bank, the 16th largest bank in the United States, collapsed in 48 hours when its depositors tried to withdraw faster than the bank could liquidate its loans. $210 billion in deposits. The bank did not have it. The Federal Reserve had to step in and rescue the depositors with money created on the spot. This was not an accident. This is what banks are, by design. So why does the system continue? Because every party in the chain wins as long as the music keeps playing. Banks win because they collect interest on money they conjured into existence. Lend 10,000 new dollars at 6% interest, and you earn $600 on cash that was never yours. Borrowers win because they get access to capital. A home buyer can buy a house. A business can hire workers. A consumer can buy a car. Politicians win because credit expansion means growth, tax revenue, and re-election. And the Federal Reserve wins because it controls the lever that turns the entire loop on or off. The only party that does not consciously win is you, the depositor. Because your savings, valued in dollars, are constantly diluted by new money created on top of them. Every loan a bank issues is technically new money. Every new dollar reduces the purchasing power of the dollars already in circulation. This is how inflation actually works. Inflation is not just the government printing cash. Inflation is your bank printing money in the form of credit every single time someone takes out a loan. So what does this mean for you in practical terms? It means the number you see in your banking app is not money. It is a credit, a claim, a promise. It means if every depositor tried to withdraw cash at the same time, almost nobody could. The physical cash does not exist relative to the digital deposits it supposedly backs. It means inflation is not an accident of policy. Inflation is the mathematical outcome of a system that legally creates $10 for every $1 of real cash. It means the only forms of wealth that escape this dilution are assets the banking system cannot create out of thin air. Physical gold, real estate, stocks of real companies, and scarce digital assets like Bitcoin, designed from the ground up to make fractional reserve mathematically impossible. It means that everything you were taught about how banks store your money was a comforting lie. The truth is harder. Your bank is not a vault. Your bank is a money printer, and every time you deposit a dollar, the printer turns on. The system is not broken. The system is doing exactly what a clever London goldsmith invented 300 years ago, and what it does brilliantly today. Take off the rose-colored glasses. Subscribe. I am going back into hibernation.